Ladies and gentlemen, I'm back and I'm at the retro section with Jordan here.
Hi.
So,
Hi.
How are you?
Very good, thanks.
Could you tell us a bit about this place?
Yeah, well, we're Replay Events, and we put on our own shows similar to Eurogamer. A lot of it is focused on the older systems, so we have systems from the 70s right up to the current gen, giving some love to the older games.
What would you say is the most popular console that you have had?
The most popular consoles are almost always the SNES and the Mega Drive. I think those two are the ones that everybody seems to rush to when they get here.
Any particular game that they really want to play?
Super Mario, that's always a favourite. Streets of Rage always gets a lot of love. So yeah, they're very popular machines. Those some of the really old ones that a lot of people have never seen before maybe don't get as much play, but there's things like Mega Drive and Saturn and getting systems like that everybody remembers, so they get a lot of time.
So what made you start this up?
Well, we started as a company a couple of years ago, but before that we were just collectors. So we collected all the old systems ourselves. We had big, we all had one room of our house full of old systems, and we just thought, let people come in and have a try. So we started doing small shows in pubs, and then we turned it into a business, and now we go around the country and we put on big events, and we supply our systems to anybody who wants to do their own.
As someone from the 90s who grew up on the old consoles basically, it's always great to see my favourite games range from the original Sonic the Hedgehogs, even way before I was born, to Metal Gear Solid.
Sure.
As a Metal Gear Solid fan, it's always nice to see that. Now for yourself, when you play the games, what does it bring back? Does it bring back any memories for you, or?
For me, it brings back the time when games, because I'm quite a bit older than you, so the stuff I remember are from the 80s and it's home computers. So it's playing games with a joystick instead of a control pad. It's one button instead of having dual sticks and all this that you've got now. It's the simplicity of gaming, and that's what it brings back to me, is the joy of a really simple game. You pick it up, you play it for 10 minutes, you can put it down, play something else. They're not these 20-hour storylines. It's all about fast, get in, play your game and get off. And with a busy life, that's all I've got time for. So I haven't got time to sit down and play the latest Metal Gear Solid. So I love to just play the old stuff that you can get in and get out.
Old school, as in, like, for example, Sonic the Hedgehog, where you had two buttons, just get the rings, go for it. It's nice that they do relaunches of it, they do classics relaunches, update the graphics. Mm-hmm. Would you like to see that in some old games coming to the new consoles?
Absolutely. I mean, there have been some really good ones. You can go back to Jetpack from the Spectrum, was released in about 1984. That was released on Xbox Live. They reskinned it with new graphics, and that was fantastic to see that brought back to life. And you could play with the original graphics as well, which was even better for me. So yeah, it's great to see them on new stuff, old games coming back as new titles. Particularly now with iOS and Android games, we're starting to see lots of the old games coming back, and I love that.
I do have to agree. That is one good thing about the new mobile devices. Thanks to their processor power, you can actually play some classics on them. Yeah,
and it also brings back the old the old style of creating video games. It used to be bedroom coders. They'd come home from school or home from work, and they'd tap out a game in the spare time. People are doing that again now on the mobile devices, because it's easy for one person to create a game and get it published. So it's bringing back that old feeling of the bedroom coders from the 80s as well. So I'm a really big fan of the mobile games.
What do you think of Minecraft? Because that's one game that took off. It was a simple game, basic.
I have never tried Minecraft. I've seen what people can do with it, and it's fantastic. I love the idea that it's not really a game at all, is it? You create your own game. And I love things like that, but I don't have time for that building, so it's not something that I've got into myself.
So it's more of like, laid back, relax, come back from work, something that you can just play for a few moments, relieve the stress.
Yeah. I mean, that's what most of my gaming is, that, a quick burst. Every now and again I'll stick on, a game like Red Dead Redemption and things like that you can get lost in the world, the open world stuff I do like, but most of the time it's just quick games, and you can get the enjoyment of 10 different games in an hour instead of one game that you've got to play for a couple of hours before you even get past the first level. So
I'd have to agree with you. Sometimes, I mean, I play like different types of games, Metal Gear Solid, Call of Duty. Sometimes you play it, it does become a bit repetitive. It's nice to go back and play some classics.
Absolutely.
So that's one good thing about the classics. Remember your childhood as well.
Sure.
It does bring back good memories when you play the games.
That's it. I mean, that's what we're all about. Is bringing that nostalgia back to people. One game to one person evokes one feeling. Somebody else gets something completely different from it. So that's what we love, letting people come back, play these games, and the number of people who say, "Oh, I've not seen this in years," or "I used to have one of them and I had one of them," and it's brilliant to see everybody enjoying the old stuff again.
No, it's good because like you get some people that are like, "Oh, I saved up my pocket money. I used to rake the yard just for this one game. I finally got it and I loved it."
Yeah, absolutely. But then you get some stinkers as well, where you saved up your pocket money and you rushed down to the shop and buy them, and they were dreadful, and then you had to still save up another month before you could buy another game.
I know the feeling of that.
Yeah.
I mean, thankfully later on we had games that, game shops that decided they'll trade games in.
Yeah.
You didn't get much money for them, but if they were a stinker, you're like, yes. So what do you think of the current generation of gamers compared to the older generation?
I think that gaming has become a lot more competitive these days, and you've got things like Call of Duty that they're releasing games now where the one-player game seems to be a bit tacked on, and it's more about the multiplayer. So I think gaming has become a lot more global now, and it's all about people competing against each other. I prefer sitting next to somebody playing a game, Micro Machines, something like that, nudging them with your elbow to put them off, that kind of stuff. You can't do that with a headset, and when you're playing against somebody in America or whatever. So I do prefer the more intimate gaming, but it's a fantastic industry, and there's tons of gamers and that love all of these new games. It's just that's not really my scene.
What do you think? Back in the days we'd had when games were released, it would be new, it would be fresh. These days it seems to be more of a game seems to come out that seems to be more serious, more of a repetitive game. They all seem to be the same. What do you think of that? Game geekers sticking to just one game.
Yeah, well, I think that's again where the mobile devices are helping, because we've got a lack of creativity in gaming now. Like you say, it's sequel upon sequel upon sequel for a lot of the games, and they don't change much. So luckily now we've got people who can be more creative and take risks. With things like the mobile devices, it's starting to change.
Without financial loss as well, because you can go in
absolutely.
There. I mean, right now we've got Halo 4 coming out, Call of Duty Black Ops, Assassin's Creed 3, then we've got Modern Warfare, then this could go on. It's
absolutely,
all just sequels. I mean, I've been walking around, there seems to be little new games on the shop floor. More game companies seem to be trying to sell games that they'll make money for, not a loss.
Absolutely.
So we seem to be lacking the willingness to actually try and take risks.
And you're seeing game studios like Sega who are saying that now they're going to concentrate on their core brands. So we're only going to see Sonic games, Football Manager games. We're not going to see the creative stuff that they've done in the past. And that's a shame. And they're not the only company that are doing that. You've got Codemasters who are now just a driving game company. And a lot of these companies used to make some really creative games, and they're then going narrower because that's where the money is. And it's unfortunate, because I think most gamers would like to see some creativity, but we don't seem to spend the money on the games like that these days. So it's probably our own doing.
I have to agree that is the main problem, because as most gamers, they'll go for a game that they like, even if the game that you change a bit of the designs on it, add a bit, you think they'll say, great, it's changed, I'll buy it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I rush out and buy FIFA every year. It doesn't change that much, but I still buy it every year.
I mean, for me, when I play a game, it's sort of the storyline. I mean, you've got Assassin's Creed, the series, I love the storyline.
Yep.
I rarely play multiplayer on it, because I just want the storyline.
Yep.
I mean, when a developer, they make a nice storyline to a game, people buy it. What do you think of that part? Do you think more people are jumping on the multiplayer bandwagon too much, or?
I think that it disappoints me that games are so focused on multiplayer these days, because I still think most people play solo, are on their own when they're playing games. So it's a shame that so much emphasis is put on multiplayer. There are some games now that you can't play single player, aren't there? I mean, I can't remember some of the more modern ones, but like Warhawk on the PS3, you could only play online multiplayer. That was actually a really good game, but it needed a campaign mode, and it's a shame that multiplayer's taking over as far as I'm concerned. But that's because that's how I like to play my games. That's not how the majority, it seems.
No, they have tried it with a couple of games. Example is Battlefield. That was just solely a multiplayer game.
Right.
They tried to do campaign on it. Didn't really end up that well because they tried to export a multiplayer to campaign.
Sure.
So some games, you should never do that. And it's also a PC game. What do you think of that? Like, importing from different platforms, trying to, cross-platform them.
I personally don't play games on a PC. I mean, I've got a Mac, so that doesn't help because there's not as many options on the Mac. But it's by all means they should be porting them to as many systems as they can to maximise people getting an opportunity to play it. But there's a lot of lazy ports out there that.
An example is Borderlands.
And that's not something new. Back in the 80s when we had the Spectrum and Commodore 64, and there was lazy ports of games between those, and you had to pick your game wisely. You had to pick your system wisely back then. Whereas at least now, there's not that much difference between most games. One may be a little bit more buggy, but they're not usually that different if you go from PS3 to Xbox or to PC. So we're probably a little bit luckier there that you get a better opportunity to play a game regardless of what system you've got.
Agreed. Anyway, Jordan, thank you for your time.
No
it's
problem.
been a privilege talking to you.
Thank you.
And it's nice to see you guys here because it does bring back memories of my childhood, which is quite cool.
Excellent.
Thanks again.
Cheers.